The teenage boy's voice cracked with panic, his phone pressed to his ear while strangers stared. His mother lay unconscious on the cafe floor, her caramel latte spreading across the tile like spilled secrets. The paramedics were 20 minutes out. The cafe manager was frozen. And then, a man in an immaculate white suit stepped forward, moving with the kind of calm that only comes from seeing everything twice. "Step aside," Big Boss Darius said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of boardrooms and backroom deals. He knelt beside the woman, his white fedora catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. What he did next, and who he called, would turn an ordinary Tuesday in downtown Chicago into a story that would ripple through social media for weeks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you what happened in that cafe, before I explain why the richest man in the room knew exactly what to do while everyone else stood paralyzed, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. This isn't just another billionaire story. This is about the kind of man who wears his power like cologne, subtle, expensive, impossible to ignore. And trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. The morning started the way most Tuesdays did for Darius Kincaid Monroe, with precision, luxury, and a perfectly timed espresso. At 62, Big Boss Darius had mastered the art of controlling his day before it controlled him. His penthouse suite overlooking Lake Michigan was bathed in golden September light, the kind of Chicago afternoon that made you forget winter was coming. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, adjusting his white silk tie. The suit was custom, Brioni, tailored in Milan 3 weeks prior. White on white, his signature. The fedora sat on the marble counter, waiting. Some men wore power ties. Darius wore an entire philosophy. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant, Gabrielle. Meeting with the Riverside Foundation moved to 2 p.m. Café Nouveau at noon still confirmed. Darius smiled. Café Nouveau was a quiet spot in the Gold Coast, the kind of place where celebrities went to not be bothered and businessmen closed deals over overpriced croissants. He wasn't meeting anyone for business, he was meeting himself, a rare luxury these days. The drive from his penthouse to the cafe took 12 minutes in his pearl-white Bentley Continental GT. His driver, Raymond, knew better than to make small talk when Darius was in thinking mode. The streets of Chicago rolled past Michigan Avenue's shoppers, the Art Institute's steps crowded with tourists, the eternal construction that seemed to define the city. Café Nouveau sat on a tree-lined street corner, its outdoor tables filled with the lunch crowd. Inside was quieter, more intimate. Dark wood panels, exposed brick, hanging plants that gave it an urban garden feel. Darius stepped through the door at exactly 12:03 p.m., and the hostess, a young woman named Sienna with remarkable green eyes, smiled immediately. "Mr. Monroe? Your usual table? Please, Sienna. And tell Marco I'll have the grilled salmon today." She nodded, leading him to a corner booth near the windows, but away from the main traffic. Privacy with a view. Darius removed his fedora, setting it carefully on the seat beside him. The cafe was moderately busy, a couple arguing quietly near the bar, a group of businesswomen laughing over salads, an older gentleman reading the Tribune with reading glasses perched on his nose. And then there was the woman. She sat 3 tables away, alone, with a laptop open and a caramel latte going cold beside her. Mid-40s, Darius guessed. Honey blonde hair pulled into a loose ponytail, minimal makeup, wearing a navy blazer that suggested she'd come from something professional. But it was her hands, he noticed, trembling slightly as she typed, then stopping to press her fingertips against her temples. Darius had seen stress before. Hell, he'd built an empire managing it. But this was different. This was someone fighting something invisible. Their eyes met briefly. She looked away first, embarrassed, as if she'd been caught. Darius returned to his phone, scrolling through emails about a real estate acquisition in Miami. But his attention kept drifting back to her. 10 minutes later, his salmon arrived. Marco, the owner, brought it personally. "Darius, my friend." Cooked to perfection, as always. "Marco, you're a magician." "No magic, Just Italian jeans and too much butter. They both laughed. Marco retreated to the kitchen, and Darius began his meal with the methodical appreciation of a man who never rushed pleasure. The salmon was perfect crispy skin, tender flesh, a lemon caper sauce that sang. And then the woman stood up. She moved slowly, deliberately, like someone testing their balance. She took 2 steps toward the restroom hallway. And Darius saw it before it happened, the way her knees buckled, the way her hand reached for a table that was too far away, the way her eyes rolled back just slightly. She collapsed. Not dramatically, not like the movies. Just a quiet, terrible surrender to gravity. Her body hit the tile floor with a sound that made everyone in the cafe freeze, a dull thud, followed by the crash of her latte cup shattering against the ground. Silence. Then chaos. Oh my God. Someone call 911. Is she breathing? Darius was already moving. He crossed the distance in 4 strides, his white suit jacket already being shrugged off and handed to a stunned waiter. He knelt beside her, his fingers immediately checking her pulse at the wrist, faint but steady. "She's alive," he announced calmly, his voice cutting through the panic. "Someone get me a cushion or a rolled jacket for her head." The cafe manager appeared, a short man with thinning hair and panic in his eyes. I called 911. They said 20 minutes because of an accident on Lakeshore Drive." 20 minutes, Darius repeated, not looking up. His hands were gentle but efficient, tilting her head slightly to ensure her airway was clear, checking her breathing. Medical school had been 40 years ago, but some things you never forgot. The woman's eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Her face was pale, too pale. Darius pressed 2 fingers against her neck, checking her carotid pulse now, still faint. He looked at her purse, spilled nearby, its contents scattered: wallet, keys, a pill bottle. He reached for the bottle. Metoprolol. Heart medication. "Does anyone know this woman?" Darius called out. Silence. She was alone, a stranger to everyone, including him. And then, from the doorway, a voice cracked with fear. "Mom?" Darius looked up. A teenage boy stood frozen at the entrance, his face drained of color. He couldn't have been more than 16 tall, gangly, wearing a private school uniform with the tie loosened. His backpack slid from his shoulder, hitting the floor. "Mom!" He ran forward, dropping to his knees beside her. "Mom, wake up! Mom!" Hey, Darius said firmly but gently, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "What's your name?" Tyler. Tyler Bennett. That's my mom, Rebecca. What happened? Is she fainted. Her pulse is weak but steady. Does she have any medical conditions?" Tyler nodded frantically, tears streaming down his face. "Her heart. She has some kind of condition. She takes pills. She said she was fine this morning," she said. His voice broke. Darius squeezed his shoulder. "Tyler, I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me? Breathe." The boy tried, gasping, his hands shaking as he reached for his mother's hand. Darius looked at Rebecca Bennett, truly looked at her now. The pallor of her skin, the slight blue tint to her lips, the way her chest rose and fell too shallowly. 20 minutes for an ambulance. In a city of 3 million people, 20 minutes might as well be forever. He pulled out his phone. "Who are you calling?" Tyler asked. "Someone who owes me a favor." The phone rang twice. "Monroe. What's wrong?" The voice on the other end was clipped, professional, female. "Dr. Castellano, I need a medical evac to Café Nouveau, Gold Coast. Cardiac patient, mid-40s, unconscious, weak pulse, shallow breathing. She's on metoprolol." A pause. "Darius, I'm a trauma surgeon, not." "Isabel, I know what you are. I also know you have access to MedStar's helicopter service because I funded their new wing last year. I need that helicopter here in 5 minutes, or I make a phone call to your chief about why you missed my foundation gala." Another pause. Then, softer, "You're serious. As a heart attack, which is what this might be. 5 minutes. Keep her stable. Darius ended the call and looked at the manager. Clear the outdoor tables. We need a landing zone. A what? A helicopter is coming. Move the tables. Now. The manager stared at him like he'd sprouted wings. But something in Darius's tone made him scramble. Within seconds, waiters were rushing outside, moving furniture, creating space on the street corner. Tyler was crying harder now. Is she going to die? Darius looked at the boy, really looked at him. 16 years old, world crumbling, trying to be brave. He saw himself at that age, watching his own mother struggle, powerless. Not this time. Tyler, Darius said quietly, your mother is going to be fine, but I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me, is it just you and her? Tyler nodded. Dad left when I was 8. It's just us. We moved here from Indiana last year for her job. She works so hard. She's always working. I told her she looked tired this morning. I told her he couldn't finish. Darius felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't business. This wasn't strategy. This was a kid watching his world end, and a woman who'd probably pushed herself to the edge, trying to hold everything together. Listen to me, Darius said, his voice firm but warm. Your mother is strong. I can see it. She raised you alone, moved to a new city, kept fighting. That kind of strength doesn't quit easy. We're going to help her. The boy's eyes met his, desperate for hope. And then, through the cafe windows, they heard it, the distant thump of helicopter rotors. The sound grew louder, closer, and suddenly the entire cafe was rushing to the windows. Outside, a red and white medical helicopter descended toward the cleared street corner, its rotors creating a windstorm that sent napkins and menus flying. Holy shit, someone whispered. The helicopter touched down with military precision. The door opened immediately, and 2 paramedics jumped out with a stretcher and medical equipment. Dr. Isabel Castellano followed a sharp-featured woman in her 40s with steel-gray hair and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen everything twice. She swept into the cafe like a general taking command. Patient status? Unconscious, approximately 8 minutes, Darius reported, standing as the paramedics took over. Pulse weak and thready, breathing shallow, history of cardiac issues, currently on metoprolol. Isabel didn't waste time. She knelt, checked Rebecca's vitals with practiced efficiency, barked orders to her team. Probable arrhythmia. Get her on oxygen, IV access, cardiac monitor. We're loading in 60 seconds. Tyler stood frozen, watching strangers swarm his mother. Darius placed a hand on his shoulder again. Can I go with her? Tyler asked desperately. Isabel looked up, her eyes softening slightly. Family? Her son. Get in. The paramedics lifted Rebecca onto the stretcher with practiced care, securing her, attaching monitors. Tyler moved to follow, but Darius caught his arm gently. Tyler, what's your phone number? The boy rattled it off, his voice shaking. Darius entered it into his phone. I'll follow in my car. Northwestern Memorial, right? He asked Isabel. She nodded. Cardiac ICU. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Tyler looked at him, confusion cutting through the fear. Why? Why are you doing this? You don't even know us. Darius smiled, a sad, knowing smile. Because someone should have done it for my mother when I was your age. Now go. Stay with her. Tyler nodded, tears streaming down his face, and ran after the stretcher. Within 90 seconds, the helicopter lifted off, banking east toward Northwestern Memorial. The cafe stood in stunned silence, watching it disappear into the Chicago skyline. Darius picked up his fedora, placed it on his head, and turned to Marco, who stood with his mouth open. The salmon was excellent. Put their bill on my account and add $1,000 for the disturbance. Darius. Who are you? Big Boss Darius smiled. Just a man who had a good lunch. Raymond? He called, stepping outside where his Bentley waited. Northwestern Memorial. And Raymond? Speed limits are a suggestion today. The drive was a blur of Chicago streets, lakefront views, and Raymond's surprisingly aggressive lane changes. Darius made 3 phone calls en route, the first to his assistant, Gabrielle. Cancel everything this afternoon. Family emergency. Sir, you don't have. I do now. The second call was to his lawyer. Jonathan, I need you to pull records on a Rebecca Bennett. Moved to Chicago from Indiana last year, has a teenage son named Tyler. Find out where she works, her insurance situation, everything. Darius. Is this legal? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. I'll explain later. The third call was to his accountant. Martin, open a discretionary fund. Code it as medical philanthropy. Start with 50,000. Be ready to increase. Sir, for what purpose? For a woman who fainted in a cafe and a kid who shouldn't have to watch his mother die because the ambulance was stuck in traffic. Silence on the line. Then, quietly, amount authorized. Anything else? Prayer might help. Darius ended the call as Raymond pulled up to Northwestern Memorial's emergency entrance. The helicopter was already on the roof pad, Rebecca likely already in the cardiac unit. Darius strode through the automatic doors with the confidence of a man who donated enough to have his name on a wing. The charge nurse looked up, started to tell him visiting hours, then recognized him. Mr. Monroe. Are you here for Rebecca Bennett, cardiac patient, just arrived via MedStar, 4th floor, cardiac ICU. But sir, only immediate family. Darius fixed her with a look. Not harsh, just certain. I'm with her son. He's 16 and alone. I'll wait in the family room. Something in his tone made her nod. The 4th floor was quieter, the kind of quiet that carried weight. Tyler sat alone in the family waiting room, his school uniform rumpled, his face in his hands. He looked up when Darius entered, and the relief that washed over his face was almost painful to see. Mister, I don't even know your name. Darius sat beside him, setting his fedora on the seat next to him. Darius Monroe, but you can call me Darius. Mr. Monroe, I thank you. I don't know how the doctor said if you hadn't called that helicopter, if we'd waited for the ambulance. He couldn't finish. We didn't wait. That's what matters. Tyler wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I called my aunt in Indiana. She's driving up, but it'll be 4 hours. I don't want to be alone. You're not alone. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Tyler spoke again, his voice small. Is she going to make it? Darius wanted to lie, wanted to promise everything would be fine, but he respected the boy too much for empty comfort. The doctors here are the best in the state. Dr. Castellano is brilliant. I've seen her save people who shouldn't have survived. Your mother is in good hands. But Tyler, you need to prepare yourself for a fight. Cardiac issues, they're serious. I know, Tyler's voice cracked. She's been sick for a while. She doesn't think I notice, but I do. She gets tired so easily now. She took this job in Chicago because it paid more, better insurance. But the stress, I think it's killing her. Darius felt anger stir not at the boy, but at a system that made a woman work herself to death to afford health care. He'd spent 40 years building wealth, leveraging power, moving pieces on boards that Tyler couldn't even see. But sitting here, in this waiting room, none of it seemed to matter as much as one woman's heartbeat. What does your mother do? Darius asked. She's a paralegal, works for some big corporate firm downtown. She hates it, but... Tyler shrugged helplessly. It's what pays the bills, what keeps the lights on. What's supposed to keep her alive? His voice turned bitter. Lot of good that's doing. Before Darius could respond, Dr. Castellano appeared in the doorway, still in her trauma gown, a surgical cap covering her steel-gray hair. Her face was professionally neutral. Tyler Bennett? Tyler shot to his feet. Yes, that's me. How is she? Isabel's expression softened slightly. Your mother had a cardiac arrhythmia. Her heart rhythm became dangerously irregular. We've stabilized her with medication and she's regained consciousness. She's weak, but she's asking for you. Tyler nearly collapsed with relief. Darius stood, placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Can I see her?" Tyler asked. "Yes. But Tyler, I need you to understand, this is serious. Your mother's heart is damaged. The medication she's on isn't enough anymore. She needs a procedure called an ablation, possibly a pacemaker. Without it—" Isabel trailed off, but the meaning was clear. "How much does that cost?" Isabel hesitated. "With insurance, probably 20 to 30,000 out of pocket. Without insurance—" "She has insurance," Tyler said quickly. "Through her job." "Good. We'll work with them. For now, let's focus on getting her stable." Room 412, down the hall. Tyler moved toward the door, then stopped, turning back to Darius. Will you come meet her? I want her to know who saved her life." Darius smiled gently. "I didn't save her life. The doctors did. But yes, I'd like to meet her." Room 412 was a standard cardiac ICU setup, monitors beeping softly, IV lines running to clear bags, adjustable bed cranked to a 45-degree angle. And in the middle of it all, Rebecca Bennett, small against the white sheets, oxygen cannula in her nose, but her eyes open and focused on the doorway. "Tyler," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Mom!" Tyler rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. "Mom, you scared me so bad. I thought—" "I'm okay, baby. I'm okay." She squeezed his hand weakly, then her eyes moved past him to Darius, standing respectfully near the door. "Who's—" Tyler turned, gesturing for Darius to come closer. "Mom, this is Mr. Monroe, Darius Monroe. He's the one who he called the helicopter. He saved your life." Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. Even pale and exhausted, Darius could see she was lovely, the kind of beauty that came from strength rather than vanity. Her honey-blonde hair spread across the pillow, and her blue eyes held a fierce intelligence even through the medication haze. "You," she started, her voice catching. "I don't understand. Why would you? I don't even know you." Darius stepped closer, removing his fedora in a gesture of respect. "Mrs. Bennett, you don't need to understand right now. You need to rest and heal." "Rebecca," she corrected softly. "Just Rebecca. And I do need to understand. Helicopter evacuations. Doctors like Dr. Castellano. That's not people. Don't just do that for strangers." Darius smiled. "Maybe they should." Rebecca studied him for a long moment, and Darius felt the weight of her gaze, assessing, measuring, trying to figure out the angle. He recognized it because he'd done it 1,000 times in boardrooms. She was used to people wanting something. "I can't afford this," she said finally, her voice cracking. "The helicopter, the ICU, the procedures Dr. Castellano mentioned. I have insurance, but barely. My deductible alone is—" She stopped, closing her eyes. "I'm sorry. You saved my life. And I'm talking about money." "Money," Darius said quietly, "is the least interesting part of this conversation." Tyler looked at him, confused. Rebecca opened her eyes again. "I don't understand." Darius pulled a chair closer and sat, setting his fedora on his knee. "Rebecca, do you know what I do for a living?" She shook her head weakly. "I make money. A lot of it. More than one person could reasonably spend in 10 lifetimes. And you know what I've learned? Money is useless if you don't spend it on things that matter." He gestured around the room. "This matters. You matter. Tyler matters. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to focus on getting better. Tyler's going to stay by your side, and I'm going to make sure that the financial part of this doesn't destroy what you've built." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I can't let you do that. I don't even know you." "You will," Darius said simply. "If you'll let me." There was something in his tone, not romantic, exactly, but interested. Genuinely interested. Rebecca caught it, and Darius saw the moment she understood that this wasn't just charity, this was connection. Tyler looked between them, sensing something shift in the room's emotional temperature. Mr. Monroe, Rebecca said carefully, I appreciate everything you've done, more than I can express. But I don't. I'm not someone who accepts handouts. I've worked hard my entire life. I raised Tyler alone. I've never asked for help from anyone. I know, Darius said gently. I can see that. It's in how you carry yourself. Even here. It's in how you raised your son. Look at him. 16 years old, scared out of his mind, but standing strong because you taught him how. He paused. But Rebecca, there's a difference between accepting a handout and accepting help from someone who wants to give it. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering friendship. Rebecca smiled weakly. Friendship that comes with a helicopter? Darius laughed, a rich, warm sound. I don't do anything halfway. The room fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the soft beeping of monitors. Tyler sat on the edge of his mother's bed, holding her hand. Darius sat nearby, a stranger who'd become something else in the span of an hour. Finally, Rebecca spoke again. Why did you really do this? Darius considered the question. He could give her the surface answer because it was right, because he could, because someone needed help, but he sensed she deserved more than that. When I was 15, he said quietly, my mother had a stroke. We lived in South Chicago, a neighborhood where ambulances took their time coming. My father was gone, like Tyler's. It was just me and her. I watched her collapse in our kitchen, watched her try to speak, and couldn't. Watched the fear in her eyes. I called 911, and they said 20 minutes. He paused. She died in 18. The room was silent. I swore that day, Darius continued, that if I ever had the power to change that equation, to make 20 minutes into 5, to turn helplessness into action, I would. Every single time. No exceptions. So when I saw you collapse, when I heard that ambulance was 20 minutes away, I didn't think, I just acted. Because that could have been my mother. That could have been anyone's mother. Rebecca was crying silently now, tears sliding down her cheeks. Tyler's eyes were wet too. I'm so sorry, Rebecca whispered. Don't be. She taught me everything I needed to know before she left. How to be strong, how to be kind, how to use whatever power you have to protect people who can't protect themselves. Darius smiled. She'd have liked you, I think. She had that same stubborn independence. Rebecca laughed through her tears. Is that a polite way of calling me difficult? It's a polite way of calling you remarkable. The moment hung between them, charged with something neither of them expected. Tyler looked at his mother, then at Darius, and some instinct made him stand. I'm gonna go get some coffee, he announced. Mom, you want anything? Tyler, you don't drink coffee, Rebecca said. Yeah, well, it's been that kind of day. He looked at Darius. You want anything, Mr. Monroe? I'm fine, son, thank you. Tyler left, and the door clicked shut behind him. Rebecca and Darius sat in the new quiet, the monitors beeping their steady rhythm. He's giving us privacy, Rebecca said softly. He's a smart kid, too smart sometimes. She adjusted herself slightly in the bed, wincing. Darius, I need to be honest with you. I don't know what this situation, this energy between us. But I need you to know, I'm not looking for rescue. I'm not some damsel who needs saving. I know, do you? Because from where I'm lying, this looks like a very generous, very powerful man sweeping in to fix a struggling woman's problems. And while I'm grateful, God, I'm so grateful I don't want to be a project or a story you tell at parties about the time you saved the poor single mother. Darius leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his expression serious. Rebecca, let me be very clear. I don't want you to be a project. I don't want you to be a story. What I want. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I want to know who you are. The woman who moved to a new city alone to give her son better opportunities. The woman who pushed herself to the edge of death rather than show weakness. The woman who's lying in a hospital bed, barely conscious, and still fighting to maintain her dignity. That woman interests me far more than any business deal I've closed this year. Rebecca studied him, and Darius let her. He was used to being analyzed, measured, investigated. In his world, people always looked for angles, but he had none here. Just genuine curiosity and something that felt dangerously close to attraction. "How old are you?" Rebecca asked suddenly. 62. "I'm 44. "I know. That doesn't bother you?" "Why would it?" Rebecca smiled slightly. "Most men your age want younger women. Trophy wives. Arm candy. I'm not most men. And I don't need trophies, I need conversation. Intelligence. Someone who can match me." He smiled back. "Someone who'd argue with a billionaire in a hospital bed about accepting help. I'm very good at arguing. I'm counting on it." They both laughed, and the tension in the room shifted again, still charged, but warmer now, more possibility than awkwardness. The door opened, and Tyler returned, carrying 3 coffees. "Got you both one anyway. Figured you could use it." "Thank you, baby," Rebecca said. Darius accepted his with a nod. Smart thinking. They sat together in comfortable silence, sipping coffee, the afternoon sun streaming through the hospital window. Outside, Chicago continued its endless motion, cars and pedestrians and the elevated trains rattling past. But in room 412, time moved differently. Dr. Castellano returned an hour later with test results and a treatment plan. Rebecca needed a cardiac ablation within the week, followed by careful monitoring. The procedure was serious, but routine. With proper care and lifestyle changes, she could expect a full recovery. "And the cost?" Rebecca asked quietly. Isabel glanced at Darius, who gave a barely perceptible nod. "Your insurance covers 80%. The remaining 20% has been handled by a private donor through our hospital foundation." Rebecca's eyes snapped to Darius. "You didn't." "I did, Darius." "Rebecca, please, let me do this. Not because you need me to, because I want to. There's a difference." Rebecca looked at her son, who was watching the exchange with barely concealed hope. She looked at Darius, this impossible man in his white suit who'd stepped into her life like something out of a movie, and she made a decision. "On one condition," she said firmly. "Name it. When I'm better, when I'm out of this bed and back on my feet, you let me take you to dinner. Somewhere I choose, somewhere I pay for." Darius smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Deal." "I'm serious." "So am I." Tyler was grinning now, the relief and hope written all over his face. Dr. Castellano made a note on her chart, hiding her own smile. "I'll schedule the ablation for Friday," she said. "Rebecca, you'll need to stay here for monitoring until then. Tyler, you're welcome to stay with her. We can arrange a cot." "Thank you, Dr. Castellano," Rebecca said. "For everything." Isabel nodded, squeezed Rebecca's hand briefly, then left. Tyler moved to his mother's side again, but he was looking at Darius with something like awe. "Mr. Monroe, I don't know how to thank you." Darius stood, picking up his fedora. "You already did, Tyler. You were brave when your mother needed you. You stayed strong. That's all the thanks I need." He placed the fedora on his head, adjusting it slightly. "I'll come check on you both tomorrow. Rebecca, you focus on healing. Tyler, you focus on being 16. Let the adults worry about everything else for now." "Darius," Rebecca called as he reached the door, "why do I get the feeling this isn't the last time I'm going to see you?" He turned back, and the smile he gave her was knowing and warm. "Because you're right. This is just the beginning." He left, and Rebecca watched the door long after it closed. Tyler sat beside her, still holding her hand. "Mom, what just happened?" Rebecca laughed softly, tiredly. "I think, baby, we just met someone who's going to change our lives." "Is that good?" She thought about it, about the man in the white suit, the command in his voice, the kindness in his eyes, the way he'd looked at her like she was worth knowing. Thought about the helicopter that shouldn't have come, the medical bills that were suddenly paid, The hand of fate that had made her faint in exactly the right cafe at exactly the right moment. "Yeah," she said finally. "I think it might be very good." 3 days later. Rebecca's room had transformed from sterile hospital space to something almost cozy. Tyler had brought pictures from home, the two of them at his 8th grade graduation, a snapshot from their road trip to Chicago, Rebecca laughing at something off camera. Flowers filled every available surface, most from Darius, elegant arrangements that suggested taste rather than excess. He visited every day. Sometimes for hours, sometimes just briefly. They talked about everything and nothing, her paralegal work and his business empire, Tyler's dreams of studying engineering and Darius's memories of building his first company, her love of old movies, and his collection of classic cars. "You're telling me," Rebecca said on Thursday afternoon, "that you own 12 cars and you don't even drive most of them?" Darius, sitting in his usual chair by the window, smiled. "I own 23 cars. But who's counting? That's insane. That's passion. Each one tells a story." He leaned forward. The 1967 Shelby GT 500 was the first classic I ever bought, saved for 3 years to afford it. The Ferrari 488 was a gift to myself when my company went public. The Bentley Continental, the one you'll see tomorrow when I drive you home, that's my favorite. Smooth, powerful, elegant, like its owner. Rebecca laughed. "Did you just compare yourself to a car?" "I compared myself to the finest British engineering money can buy. There's a difference." Tyler, doing homework in the corner, groaned. "You two are nauseating." "Respect your elders," Rebecca teased. "I respect you, Mom. I'm still deciding about Mr. Monroe." Darius clutched his chest in mock pain. "Wounded. I'm wounded." They'd fallen into an easy rhythm, the three of them. It felt natural in a way that should have scared Rebecca but somehow didn't. Maybe it was the medication. Maybe it was the near-death experience giving her perspective. Or maybe it was just Darius, the way he treated Tyler like an adult worth listening to, the way he made her feel seen rather than rescued, the way his presence filled a room without overwhelming it. The ablation procedure Friday morning went smoothly. Rebecca was nervous, but Darius was there when they wheeled her in and there when she woke up, groggy and tired but alive. Tyler cried with relief. Even the nurses seemed invested in her recovery, stopping by more than necessary to check on Mr. Monroe's friend. "You're famous here," Rebecca mumbled through the anesthesia haze. "I funded their new cardiac wing," Darius said simply. "They're being polite." "You fund everything, don't you?" "Not everything. Just the things that matter." By Sunday, Rebecca was cleared to go home. Dr. Castellano gave her strict instructions: rest, medication, follow-up appointments, lifestyle changes. No stress, no overworking, no pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. "I'm serious, Rebecca," Isabel said, her tone stern. "Your heart can't take another episode like this. You need to make changes." "I will. I promise." Isabel looked at Darius, who stood nearby with Tyler. "Make sure she does. She's stubborn." "I noticed," Darius said dryly. The ride home in the Bentley was quiet. Tyler sat in front with Raymond, chatting about cars. Rebecca sat in back with Darius, watching Chicago roll past the tinted windows. Their apartment building in Lincoln Park wasn't fancy, a modest 3-story walk-up in a decent neighborhood. Darius helped her up the stairs to the 2nd floor, his hand steady on her elbow. The apartment was small but clean living room, with a worn couch and dozens of books, tiny kitchen with morning light, 2 bedrooms down a short hall. Tyler's room exploded with posters and teenage chaos. Rebecca's was simpler bed, dresser, a single photo of her and Tyler on the nightstand. "It's not much," Rebecca said quietly, suddenly self-conscious. "It's home," Darius replied. "That's everything." He helped her settle on the couch, Tyler fussing with pill, bottles, and water. Darius stood in the middle of the small living room, looking somehow both out of place and perfectly natural in his white suit among her second-hand furniture. "I should let you rest," he said. "You could stay," Rebecca offered. "For coffee. Or lunch. I mean, Tyler's going to order pizza anyway. Mom, smooth, Tyler muttered. Rebecca blushed. I'm out of practice at this. Darius smiled. At what? At whatever this is. She gestured between them. I haven't dated in 6 years. Haven't wanted to. Haven't had time. And now suddenly there's you. And I don't know what the rules are. Rebecca. Darius sat beside her on the couch, careful not to crowd her. There are no rules. This is whatever we want it to be. If you want it to be friendship, I'm honored. If you want it to be more, he paused. I'm interested, very interested, but only if you are, and only when you're ready. Rebecca looked at him, really looked at him. The silver at his temples, the lines around his eyes that suggested a man who'd laughed as much as he'd worked, the quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly who he was. He was older, yes. Powerful, yes. Probably complicated, almost certainly dangerous in ways she couldn't see yet, but he was also kind, patient, genuine. And God help her, she was interested too. I'd like to find out, she said softly. What this could be. Darius smiled, and it transformed his face. Then we'll find out together. Tyler appeared with plates and a pizza box. Okay, seriously, someone needs to tell me if you're dating so I know how weird to feel about this. Tyler, Rebecca groaned. What? It's a legitimate question. He's like, old enough to be my grandfather. I'm 62, not ancient, Darius protested, and he's a billionaire, which is objectively weird. Fair point, Darius conceded. And Mom, you're blushing, which means you like him, which means I need to know if I should start calling him Darius, or if there's like a protocol here. Rebecca buried her face in her hands. Darius laughed, a deep, genuine sound that filled the small apartment with warmth. Tyler, Darius said, how about you call me whatever feels comfortable? And yes, I like your mother, very much. And yes, that probably seems strange. But life is strange. If the past week has taught us anything, it's that the unexpected can be beautiful. Tyler considered this, pizza slice halfway to his mouth. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but if you hurt her, billionaire or not, I know where you live. Tyler! Rebecca was mortified, but Darius just smiled. Fair warning. I respect that. Deal. They ate pizza on the couch, the three of them, talking about everything and nothing. About Tyler's school and Rebecca's recovery and Darius's upcoming trip to Miami. About movies and music and the best pizza in Chicago, a spirited debate that Tyler won by sheer enthusiasm. As the afternoon faded to evening, Darius finally stood to leave. Rebecca walked him to the door, Tyler tactfully disappearing to his room. Thank you, Rebecca said quietly, for everything. Not just the medical stuff. For being here. For making this feel normal. It is normal, Darius said. Just a different kind of normal than you're used to. He reached out, tucked a strand of honey-blonde hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, brief, electric. Get some rest. Doctor's orders. When will I see you again? When do you want to see me again? Rebecca smiled. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. I'll bring lunch. Darius, you don't have to. I know. I want to. He left, and Rebecca closed the door, leaning against it with a smile she couldn't quite contain. Tyler appeared instantly. So? So what? Mom, come on. You're glowing. I am not glowing. You're totally glowing. It's disgusting and adorable. He hugged her. I like him, Mom. He's weird, but I like him. He is a little weird, isn't he? The best people usually are. 6 weeks later, the Chicago autumn was in full glory, trees ablaze with color, lake breeze carrying the promise of winter, the city alive with energy. Rebecca sat in Café Nouveau, waiting, her caramel latte untouched beside her. She'd chosen this place deliberately, come full circle to where everything changed. The door opened, and Darius walked in white suit, white fedora, commanding presence. But his eyes found her immediately, and they softened with something that made her heart, her newly healthy, properly functioning heart, skip. He sat across from her, removing his hat. "You look beautiful. You always say that. It's always true." They'd been seeing each other steadily, dinners and museum visits, and long walks along the lakefront. Slow and patient, building something real. Rebecca had gone back to work part-time, with strict instructions from Dr. Castellano and stricter monitoring from Darius. Tyler had adjusted to his mother dating a billionaire with surprising grace, mostly because Darius treated him like family rather than an obstacle. "So," Rebecca said, a slight tremor in her voice, "I have something to tell you." Darius's expression became immediately serious. "Everything okay? Your heart?" "My heart is fine. Better than fine. That's actually what I need to talk to you about." She took a breath. "I handed in my notice at the law firm yesterday." Darius blinked. "You quit?" "I quit. That job was killing me, literally. And I realized something. I don't want to spend my life doing work. I hate to afford survival. I want to do work that matters. So, I'm enrolling in school, social work degree. I want to help people the way you helped me." Darius reached across the table, taking her hand. "Rebecca, that's incredible, but how will you manage tuition, living expenses?" "I have some savings. And Tyler's starting to look at scholarships. We'll figure it out. We always do." She squeezed his hand. "But here's the thing. I can't take any more money from you. Not for this. This is something I need to do myself. Do you understand?" Darius studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, slow and proud. "I understand. You're remarkable. You know that?" "You keep saying that." "I'll keep saying it until you believe it." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked across the table. Around them, Café Nouveau hummed with lunchtime energy. Somewhere in the kitchen, Marco was probably making his magic. Outside, Chicago went about its business, unaware of the small miracles happening in corner booths. "There's something else," Rebecca said. "That dinner I promised you, the one where I choose and I pay, I'm finally ready to make good on that. Next Saturday. Will you come?" "Nowhere I'd rather be. Even though it won't be fancy? Even though it'll probably be some little place in my old neighborhood?" "Rebecca." Darius lifted her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles, old-fashioned, courtly. "I've eaten in Michelin-starred restaurants around the world, but the best meal I ever had was pizza on your couch with you and Tyler. Fancy isn't what makes something special. The people are what matter." Rebecca felt tears threaten. Happy tears. Grateful tears. "How are you real?" "I ask myself the same thing about you." They stayed for another hour, talking and laughing, their corner booth a small universe unto itself. When they finally left, Darius held the door open for her, always the gentleman. Outside, his Bentley waited. Raymond tipped his hat. "Can I drive you home?" Darius offered. "Actually," Rebecca said, taking his hand, "walk with me? It's beautiful today." So they walked through the Gold Coast, past elegant brownstones and boutique shops, underneath trees raining gold leaves. Two people who shouldn't have met, who almost didn't, who found each other in the chaos of a Tuesday afternoon and decided to see where the path led. At her building, Darius kissed her goodbye, gentle, sweet, full of promise. Tyler appeared in the window above, making exaggerated gagging motions. They both laughed. "Go," Rebecca said, "before my son stages an intervention. Tonight? Dinner? Always." "Yes." Darius walked back to his car, fedora catching the afternoon light. Rebecca watched him go, feeling impossibly lucky, impossibly grateful, impossibly alive. Inside the apartment, Tyler was waiting with a smirk. "You're still glowing, Mom. It's been 6 weeks. Get used to it, baby." Rebecca hugged him tight. "Get very used to it." 3 months after that, the text came at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Café Nouveau. Today. Noon. Trust me. D." Rebecca smiled at her phone, already knowing she'd go. She'd learned to trust Darius's surprises, they always meant something. She arrived at 11:55, wearing a simple blue dress that Darius loved. The cafe looked different, somehow emptier, only a few tables occupied. Marco greeted her at the door with a knowing smile. "Miss Rebecca, right this way." He led her to the same corner booth where Darius had sat that first day, but instead of Darius, there was an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper, her name written in elegant script. She opened it. "Rebecca, 3 months ago, you collapsed in this cafe. I was supposed to be eating lunch alone, heading to a meeting I've long since forgotten. Instead, I met you. I met Tyler. I met a kind of courage I'd forgotten existed, the courage of people who keep fighting even when the world is hard. You've become essential to me. Your strength, your humor, your absolute refusal to let me buy my way into your good graces. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me want to deserve the trust you've given me. This isn't a proposal you've made clear you need time, and I respect that. This is a promise, a commitment, a declaration that I'm not going anywhere, that whatever you need, space or closeness, patience or passion, I'll meet you there. But I did take the liberty of doing one thing. Turn around. Love, Darius." Rebecca turned, and there, in the main dining area of Café Nouveau, standing in his white suit with his white fedora in hand, was Darius. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Tyler, grinning, and Dr. Isabel Castellano, and Marco, and Raymond the driver, and at least 20 other people faces Rebecca recognized from the neighborhood, from the hospital, from her life. And on the wall behind them, hanging like art, a massive photograph of this very cafe, this very corner, with a brass plaque underneath, "Where miracles happen over coffee, in honor of second chances." Funded by the Darius and Rebecca Foundation for Emergency Medical Response. Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Darius crossed to her, his expression soft. "You said you wanted to help people. I thought we could do it together. This foundation will fund rapid response medical transport for people who can't wait. People like you, people like my mother. We'll make sure 20 minutes never becomes 18 again." "Darius," Rebecca whispered. "This is I can't. You can. We can. Together." He took her hand. "If you want to." Rebecca looked at Tyler, who was openly crying now, giving her a thumbs up, looked at the photograph, at the plaque, at the room full of people smiling with genuine joy, looked at this impossible man who'd walked into her life and refused to walk back out. "Yes," she said. Together. The room erupted in applause. Marco popped champagne. Someone started playing jazz. And in the corner booth of Café Nouveau, beneath autumn light and surrounded by love, Darius pulled Rebecca into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was, "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder, "for saving my life." "No, darling," Darius said quietly, his lips near her ear. "Thank you for giving me a reason to save it." And somewhere, in the city outside, an ambulance screamed past, urgent, necessary, racing toward someone who needed help. But inside the cafe, time slowed. Hearts healed. And two people who'd found each other in the chaos decided to spend forever grateful for the gift of one terrible, beautiful Tuesday afternoon when the world stopped and everything changed. If you love this story about Big Boss Darius and Rebecca, about second chances, unexpected love, and the power of showing up for strangers who become family, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me what you thought. Share this with someone who needs to remember that miracles still happen, even on ordinary Tuesdays. And stay tuned, because Darius's story is just getting started. There are more lives to save, more hearts to heal, and more moments that prove love doesn't have an expiration date, it just finds you when you're ready to be found. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best thing you can do is be exactly where you are when someone needs you most. See you in the next story.